The Nashville Predators are dealing with injuries on the ice and a lot of question marks off the ice. And Kimmel of Locked On Predators joins us to talk about the latest going on in the Music City. All that and more coming up on this episode of the Locked On NHL Podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NHL Podcast. Gil Martin, so glad you could be with us today, and thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Predators, Ann Kimmel. And Ann, I can't say it's been an uneventful 48 hours around the Nashville Predators. So much going on. I mean, just in the last couple of days, you've got Michael McCarron entering the league's assistance program, and then Eeli Tolvanen placed on waivers, a former first-round pick. Fill us in on what's going on with the Nashville Predators right now.
I think you're absolutely right. It has been a very chaotic 48 hours for the Predators, and the news keeps rolling in. This morning it was announced Michael McCarron is going into the NHL assistance program. And first off, want to say we wish him well and want him to take care of everything he needs to before he returns to the ice. McCarron has played 13 games for the Predators this season. He slots in and out of the lineup. Known very much for his physicality, for playing that hard-hitting identity style of hockey. So that aspect of his game will certainly be missed. Interesting timing, because along with that news, just hours later, the Nashville Predators placed Eeli Tolvanen on waivers. And Eeli Tolvanen has been a healthy scratch this season. And it's been a bit of a drama with Tolvanen and John Hynes and David Poile in Nashville. But it just kind of the timing escalates the sense of frustration, I think, among Predators fans base, because now we have Michael McCarron, who is stepping away from the ice, and Eeli Tolvanen, who you would think would be available to step in as a healthy scratch, now placed on waivers.
Is there any chance that, if he goes unclaimed, he returns to the team, or is this the end of his stint with the organization right now?
That's such a great question. I personally would be surprised if he is not claimed off waivers, although he has not had enough ice time. Maybe some of these teams who may be interested in picking up a forward might not know enough about his game. He really hasn't had a chance to sort of highlight what his skill set is as much as I'm sure he would have liked to. If he does not get claimed off waivers and clears, I'm just not sure what the path back to Nashville is for him. And like you said, this is the 2017 first-round draft pick. So many expectations came along with bringing Tolvanen into the organization. He was known for an amazing shot. He really has spent time developing more of a 200-foot game. But there is some sort of disconnect with Eeli Tolvanen, and whether it's John Hynes or bigger in the organization or with the team, and it just has never solidified into a fit for him. I think people expected this to be a top 6 player for the Nashville Predators. That just hasn't materialized. And the more he's been healthy scratch, the more it just appears that there is some sort of disconnect. And I'm not sure how that's repaired if he ends up in Milwaukee to bring him back up to Nashville.
I mean, parting ways potentially with a former first-round pick and getting nothing back obviously can't be good for the organization. I mean, do you think it's a style thing? Do you think his style just doesn't mesh with what the coaching staff is trying to accomplish, or?
I think there was an element of that early in John Hynes' tenure, because John Hynes came in and has a very specific style of hockey that he's looking for. And so players, for instance, Victor Arvidsson really didn't fit that more hard-hitting, forechecking style. And so Victor Arvidsson found himself in LA. Eeli Tolvanen sort of had that because he was a very offensive-minded player. But we noticed over Heinz's tenure, we saw Eeli Tolvanen kind of develop more physicality in his game, more of that forechecking. And last season when he played, he had a really good 200-foot game, but there still was something where there just was some sort of a disconnect. And this season, Tolvanen really hasn't had a great opportunity to prove himself again on the ice. So while his style of hockey has sort of developed, there is still something that makes it not an easy fit. And again, I'm not sure if that's John Hines and on-ice coaching or if there's some sort of other issue behind the scenes that we're just not aware of.
Well, we'll certainly check in with Locked On Predators to get updates as to the latest with him. Then there are injuries.
Yes.
We already know that Ryan McDonagh is on IR. He is not available to the team. And now over the weekend, more injuries, particularly to the blue line. Why don't you fill us in on the latest there?
Yeah, this is a developing story that has all of us feeling a little bit more than nauseous. We lost Ryan McDonagh against the Islanders. He actually took a puck to the face. Found out later he ended up having a steel plate inserted in his cheek. He is expected to be out 2 to 4 weeks. I think 2 weeks is an extremely optimistic forecast for that, but we'll see. And then in the game Saturday afternoon against the Ottawa Senators, we lost defenseman Jeremy Lauzon. He took what I think many in Nashville felt like was a late, possibly penalty-worthy hit and seemed to have hurt his wrist or arm. So he missed the third period. And then Alexander Carrier, can't tell you exactly where the injury occurred, but he also didn't return. So the entire third period of that Senators game, Nashville cycled 4 defensemen. So we are down defensemen. The Milwaukee Admirals, our AHL affiliate, had a game last night. 2 of their normal defensemen starters were healthy scratches. So we're anticipating that Roland McEwen and Kevin Gravel are headed to Nashville, but we're going to wait and get official word from the organization, hopefully sometime tomorrow.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that, and hopefully the injury situation resolves itself. Interestingly enough, the blue line is where the injuries hit, and yet goal scoring has been a bigger issue over the course of the season for this team. Only one player with double-digit goals so far, and that's Nino Niederreiter. What can this team do? I mean, I know it's not an offense-first kind of a philosophy, but what can this team do to get above 31st, which is where they're ranked right now in the league in goals scored?
It's been very disappointing in Nashville, especially after last season where we watched Filip Forsberg and Matt Duchene race each other for the franchise's season goal scoring record. That certainly hasn't been the case so far this season. What's interesting is that Nashville is actually generating a decent number of high danger chances. What they're not doing is finishing. Part of that is in some of these games where they've really generated high danger chances, they have run into hot goaltenders. And that's not an excuse. That's a little Ville Husso for you right there. So part of that is we've kind of run into hot goaltenders and the timing hasn't been great. But a lot of it is just finishing. The power play, for instance, has had some trouble. It looked better on Saturday, but again, they could not net a power play goal. And they need to continue to generate these high danger chances because they are going up, especially coming up this week against teams that are very offensively minded. Nashville has got to get some more goals on the board.
Well, we'll see if they could do that. And why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
You can find the podcast on YouTube, Locked On Predators. We're also on Twitter at LO_Predators. You can find us anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. And you can follow me, Ann Kimmel, on Twitter at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
All right. Ann, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Gil.
This episode is brought to you by your friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball, World Cup soccer, the NHL, and esports. We've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you could find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Hey, maybe you want to use your knowledge and expertise about the NHL to try to win some extra money. Just head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.